Okay, so this is a bold claim to make, this claim of a refounding of the country, of a second American Revolution, of kind of a building up of some things that were wild and doing a bunch of different things. But I really do mean it. And I think I have pretty good evidence to back this up. So now this second American Revolution, this kind of, again, refounding moment, what it means practically for Americans and the American citizen is the following. And before we get into really what it means for everyone else, we need to understand why this is happening. And I believe that on the eve of our 250th birthday as a country, it's happening for two reasons. The first one is that the woke revolution failed. So as we saw with the French Revolution, the opening monologue, nature abhors a vacuum, power abhors a vacuum. Someone will fill that, and that's why we need to be careful when we're wanting to topple some foreign government or say that this person's a terrible person. We need to remove them at all costs, because most likely, like the French, what will happen will be far worse in some ways. And Napoleon obviously stopped people from getting beheaded, but he was an awful person in his own right as well. And what we are seeing now is that there is this gap in terms of what does American culture look like? What does America mean right now? Because for the past 15 years, through this derangement that we've all lived through, it's really kind of just been a rapacious stampede of a lot of different things that have just trampled everything else underneath it, which was the woke revolution. But as we've seen, that movement has fallen out of the sky. And it's not going to go away. It will always be here, because you let this genie of Marxism, whatever you want to call it, out of the bottle. It's not going to just go away by itself. We need to actively keep it away. But it is in massive retreat now, and we are winning back a lot of ground in that fight, which is good. And why I think we're winning that ground is what I want to focus on, because that's what this second American Revolution is going to be built upon. So what it's going to be built upon is people that are demanding something different. Because wokeness was rejected, not just because of the election, but people were just so sick of the racism, of the sexism, of the kid stuff, of everything that was going on. And so they said, you know what, we don't want. By the way, it was more multi-ethnic than ever before, in terms of Hispanic folks were saying this, Asian folks were saying this, black folks were saying this, white folks were saying this, religious Americans were saying this. Everybody was kind of saying, like, I'm just kind of done with the insanity, which is why I wanted to say value-driven people. And what are they demanding to? Because the woke revolution was defined by a lot of things, but wokeness, in a sense, if you had to boil it down to really one thing, it was just a complete redefinition and misalignment of everything inside of our society, which obviously led to a lot of the problems. So in the inverse of that, because of all the chaos that resulted from the woke movement, people are demanding a return to order, a return to structure, a return to a value-driven lifestyle. And all of these are exactly what we were finding in the first American Revolution. We wanted some kind of governing document, which were the Declaration of Independence, obviously, and then the United States Constitution. They demanded a structure, which was more of the Constitution than the Declaration of Independence. It's kind of like, here are the three branches of government, here is how the presidency works, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but America was really founded on a set of shared values. And I think people really don't realize how revolutionary that concept is. Because when you look at Europe, when you look at Africa, when you look at Australia, when you look at Asia, primarily, and there are some dispersions in this, but most countries are not founded on shared values. Most countries are founded on a location, an ethnic group, a geography, and maybe there's a religion that comes out of there. There were a lot of religions that came out of those things, but that's more of a cultural mandate in a way. And really Christianity, and now in certain cases Islam and Catholicism and a bunch of different places are changing this. But when you look at kind of the tribal affiliation of everything in terms of the way that fabrics of even the Native Americans back before the Pilgrims got here, people did not really bond together over shared values. They kind of just said, hey, this person's my neighbor, this person's near me, and I am going to go just be with this person because I'm in proximity of this person. And we look the same, and we talk the same, and we know the same things, and so then a culture was built off of that. But what makes America so interesting is that this was a totally new place for a lot of people. It was the unexplored, undeveloped world, that was the New World, as it was called back in the day, that people from all walks of life. And America was colonized by the French. It was colonized by the British. It was colonized by the Spanish. It was colonized by the Native Americans, obviously, or not colonized, it's not the right word, but they were here first. And so we had a real kind of interesting mesh of different cultural ideas that came here. And obviously, Britain became the most prominent in many ways. And the Spanish went south, the French went north, and obviously the Native Americans and the British had and later Americans had a lot of fights back and forth about land and what we should do about this. And that was a lot of good things, a lot of bad things came out of that, obviously. But in terms of a totally new place and building a society from the ground up, not on I was here first, not on I look like you, not on I talk like you, not on I think like you, but we are going to develop a system from scratch, an operating manual, a user guide of how a country works. And like, that's a crazy thing to see. Like, I mean, that's a wild, anyone who started a company knows this. When you've built something from the ground up and, nonetheless a nation where you have to have an economy built inside of it with multiple prongs, and you need to have, a system of law and order, you have to have a system of courts and all those type of things. This is a radical idea, which is what makes the bravery and the intelligence of the founders so extraordinary, because everything that was, about the American founding, it's just these men that were so pivotal in how this government was formed and how it still operates. Like, we really haven't changed all that much. I mean, we've had amendments to the Constitution, obviously, like, we want women to vote, and we want black people and minorities to vote, and we want people to obviously have, the Bill of Rights obviously is an incredibly important thing, and we want those rights protected for all people, for all Americans. And it's just something that is really, it's just, you look back at it, and I talk to my dad about this all the time. It's like, man, are we lucky that the founders were as smart as they were. They were really smart people. And again, not perfect people, but they were good people, and they were intelligent people, and they were smart people. And on the point of the founders as well, I think another factor, one that is underrated in terms of both the first American Revolution, the one that we celebrate every year on the 4th of July, and now I believe this kind of refounding the second American revolutionary movement that we're experiencing now, is that it's almost a carbon copy of the American Revolution, the original American Revolution, in a sense, that it's almost entirely being led by young men. Younger men are leading this American Revolution. They are leading the return back to a value-driven society. You see young men are going back to church in droves. They are flocking to traditional values in droves. They want to start families. They want to buy homes. They want to work. They want to get a job. They want to be involved in the things of a traditional social fabric and a culture. They want to, again, be a part of something and be a part of a kind of communitarian way of living that really defined America for a very long time. And this is what, Alexis de Tocqueville wrote a great book about this called Democracy in America. I wrote about it a lot in Spectrum of Lies, which is behind me now and out on all platforms that you can buy books. But de Tocqueville's observation of America was like, wow, they're really individualistic and they're really community-oriented. And that's what makes America great. And that's what the founders realized as well. And that's why de Tocqueville was saying, okay, I think there's legs to this thing. The founders were unbelievably young when they did the American Revolution. Like I believe Alexander Hamilton might not even have been, I think it was like 24 when the American Revolution happened. This is the guy, I'm not really a Hamilton fan, but he founded the central bank. He did like all these massive things. He was a really influential person inside of American politics. But really the only old guy inside of all of this was Ben Franklin. Like George Washington was young. Thomas Jefferson was young. John Jay was young. Alexander Hamilton, like I said, was young. John Adams, Samuel Adams, everybody was just so wildly just, you wouldn't think that this level of wisdom would come from this age group of people, but it did. And so they were able to challenge or channel their masculine energy effectively into staging a revolution that was not like the French Revolution. Again, they were able to stage a revolution that provided opportunity, prosperity, legitimacy to all people. And not just people who looked like them and agreed with what they agreed with. They had vast disagreements. Like Aaron Burr, who's one of the other founding fathers, he killed Alexander Hamilton because they disagreed so much. Like, it's crazy. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson hated each other. There were many people inside of the founders that had vicious disagreements with one another. And so given that, and given now, because there's still obviously a lot of disagreements that we have to work out between one another, even with the side of the culture that's winning back ground. And I think the biggest thing we have to recognize is, okay, in spite of all the differences in terms of how you see this specific policy working or this part of the government working or whatever the case might be, what is the common theme that is bringing all of these people together to conduct this? And I've been wondering that for a while, like what is, because again, this should not have worked in 1776. It should not have worked in 2025. It should not be working in 2025. People who are wildly different in terms of their opinions about various things, they look differently, they think differently, they have different religious beliefs, etc. Why is this happening? And I got a really good answer actually from one of my pastors, my friend Ethan Marolas, who's one of my pastors at Red Rocks Austin out here. He's a wonderful guy. He's a friend of mine. And he gave a sermon last week with Emily Robe, who's our worship leader. And both did a phenomenal job. But Ethan raised a point that I thought was really interesting because, again, Ethan is a youth pastor. And he's seeing this movement firsthand, particularly of young guys, of young men who are saying that they want to be a part of a community. They want to be a part of a society. They want to be a part of the Christian faith. And he's really made an emphasis on seeing, like, okay, why is this? Why is this happening? And what he said I thought was very interesting. And what he said was that young people want the truth. They want the truth. They have grown up in a totally artificial world. I have grown up in a totally artificial world, not as much as the people a little bit younger than I am. I'm 27, so I'm a very old member of Gen Z, but I still have relatively grown up in the same environment. So we know that all of this in our society is kind of fake. It's kind of not real. And we are now seeing a slow but sure rejection of this kind of, Carl Trueman calls it plastic people in liquid worlds. We are seeing this fake world dissolve in front of our eyes. We're rejecting that. And we're saying, we're done. We're not going to do the whole, like, you can just pick whatever gender you are. We're not going to do like every walk of life is the same and every value system matters. Like, we're not going to do that anymore. And you're seeing young people flock back to tradition, flock back to values in ways, even with young women who are skewing more left and going more non-traditional. You have a good amount of women who are really leaning hard into this. So it's both young men and young women I see that are doing this. And maybe it's because of my environment, but I just see it broadly as well. And I can't overstate how big of a massive win this is for America and for our culture. Because if this is true, if truth is going to be the common denominator of this and the next generation, we are on the path to winning. We are going to win. Because at the end of the day, you can try to duck the truth. You can try to do whatever you want with the truth and try to say it's inconvenient, say it's whatever. But at the end of the day, the truth will come out about everything, about your personal life, about the country, about culture, about the world. Everything will come out. All will be revealed. Cat Williams predicted this last year. The year of truth is what he called it. And Cat's a really smart guy. I know he's a comedian. He's a clown because that's what he gets paid to do and that's what he's really good at. But Cat Williams is a really smart guy. And Cat Williams was absolutely right about this. The truth will come out about everything from Diddy to Epstein to to whatever you want to call it. The truth will come out. And if we have a generation and multiple generations, God willing, that is willing to make that the defining common denominator of that generation, I want the truth no matter what, then we're going to win. Because the truth is in values. Values is are the truest thing you can ever possibly embody. And I think that's a massive win for our entire culture. And we should see that as highly optimistic, particularly in our young people.